Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, again, I'm on the road. It's where I do my thinking for my videos, apparently. Don't do this at home. I'm on a highway. Yeah. So, I really wanted to talk about, I think it just popped into my mind, the hardest and most critical part of recovering from anxiety, and how you really gain a little bit of steam and gain a little bit of momentum that I talked about in, I believe it was my last video. And this is something that is really just common amongst everybody that talks about recovering from anxiety, in the fact that you have to have acceptance and belief in the fact that it is anxiety that's causing all this umbrella of symptoms that are going on behind the scenes. So with that being said, it's just like, how do you accept things when you're constantly feeling them? It's almost like you get bombarded, and when you have downtime from symptoms and you have like a free couple of minutes, like, how do you start to drill home the fact that you accept that it's just anxiety, you believe this is anxiety, when in 5 more minutes or a couple more minutes, when you start thinking about it, all your symptoms just come flooding back and you just get beat down again, and you're like, this isn't anxiety, it's not anxiety, it's got to be something more, right? Because that's pretty much the common denominator with everybody that suffers from health anxiety. Is just that, like, something is wrong, and it doesn't really matter what you think or what you've heard, because you just don't really believe that. At least definitely at a subconscious level. Maybe consciously you start to think like, okay, well, maybe it's not this, but once something happens, you still kind of go back to being incredibly fearful, and the what if thoughts again start to creep in, and you're not really there with the convincing your subconscious that you're okay, and that you actually are healthy. So how do you get there? To me, I don't know how many people this applies to, like when they're first starting to deal with these kind of things, like how many people are actually going to the doctors and pushing their doctor toward a specialist. I guess this really is more geared to health anxiety and the cardiophobia, because it was just a brutal phase, especially like in the real thick of it. That there's still, that even after, I guess, 2 years, there's still residuals of it for me. But I'm at a point now where I do feel like there's much more progression, and I see, vast improvements over what it was night and day compared to what it was before. So a lot of people are like, well, how do I get there? And if you want to cut down a lot of your journey, just listen to my videos and some other videos too. But I give a more broad umbrella approach. I cover a lot more things than some other people do. But just watch these videos and go to the doctor. You have to really, even if it's difficult, and even if you have white coat, which is actually one of the things I still have, but it's kind of like whatever. I mean, even if I freak out in a doctor's office, like even if I get anxious or panicky or whatever, I mean, you leave there, you go home, and it's fine. But that's kind of the good kind of exposure. That you can have, is to put yourself in those positions that aren't really dangerous. I mean, you're just going there. Like, yes, in the beginning, you're going to feel that you're going to get bad news, but for the most part, like the vast majority, like virtually everybody's going to get good news, and it's going to help them in the intermediate. And now it's up to you, to pick up on that, not to just get good news and go back home and say like, okay, thank God, but you don't fix anything in your life. Whether that's the exercise, the diet, the sleep, the relationships, the traumas, the breathing, all this kind of stuff. if you don't do anything with it, I mean, eventually you're going to fall back into it. It might only take 45 minutes, an hour a day, until you're back fearing the same kind of things because you're not picking up on it. I mean, you have to take a step back and look at yourself and look at your life and be like, okay, all in these areas, like, is everything good there? Is my sleep good? Am I staying up till 2 a.m., you know, watching Netflix? Am I constantly exposed to, like, my blue light from my cell phones, from the TVs, and I'm trying to sleep and I'm not getting good sleep? Am I waking up while I'm sleeping? Am I doing any exercising? Is my diet terrible? I'm just doing the standard American diet and I'm not getting, you know, nutrient-dense foods and good foods that really take care of my body and give it the energy and the fuel that it needs. You know, like, all of these things now is something that you have to look into. Your personality traits. Are you like a controlling person? Are you a perfectionist? Are you overly analytical? All these things you have to really take a look at and fix it. Like, the positive thing is now you know where to look. Like, before, when you're first going through this, you have no idea where to start. You have no idea what to look for. You have no idea what's going on. So it's just like, good luck. You know, like, you don't even know, like, you don't know what you don't know, kind of thing. So it's just literally overwhelming. In this sense, it's overwhelming. Like, there's a lot of things that lead up to it, but at least you know where to begin now and what to look for and look into, and you could start pushing yourself toward, you know, these areas, whichever areas are specific to you and you feel like could use the help. It's only good to help, but you kind of have to light a little bit of your own fire under your ass, and if this isn't enough to light that fire, it's going to be a struggle, but eventually you'll get to the point where you're like, I don't want to, like, I'm just done dealing with it. And I think I got to a point too where it's like, well, I'm just going to start exercising and just kind of see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, if something was going to happen, but number one, it probably would have already happened. And I still have that, in the sense where, so with me, it got to a point where I was feeling everything, and that would freak me out. And I tell this in other videos. And then I got to the point where I was kind of desensitized in a lot of aspects, and I didn't feel certain things, and that really freaked me out too, because it's almost like the high heart rate versus the low heart rate. Like, when it's lower, you feel like, is it just stopping? Am I like, and like, you start to fear other things, like, I don't want to name any conditions, I don't want to trigger anybody, but you just start to think that it could be other conditions and other things that are going on. So it's essentially the same thing with me, with not feeling certain things. I was like, is this another condition? Is my, like, heart weaker? You know, all this kind of stuff. And that freaked me out, because it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. If you're not happy when you're feeling things, obviously, because that's scary. And then when you don't feel things, but you're used to feeling things, like, that's scary. You know what I mean? So it just puts you in, like, this weird situation where you really have to then develop a better mentality around the fact that if something was going to happen with not feeling anything, it would have happened, right? Which is, when you're in the middle of it, it's easier said than done, because you literally forget, like, oh, for the past 37 years or so, I literally never felt, like, I didn't know I had a heart. Like, I've never felt it at all. But now all of a sudden, in the short time frame that you experience these heavy physical symptoms, you're really aware of everything that's going on in your body and with your heart. So it's very hard to break free from that again, and to go back to, like, oh, this is normal. Like, not feeling anything is normal. It's difficult, and it took me like a year and a half, 2 years, just to get to that point. So it's not anybody that comes into it thinking it's going to be a really a quick process. You need to temper your expectations a little bit, because it's not. I'll use the analogy, like, you didn't get to this point in 2 weeks, right? It's usually something that is a build-up over years and years and decades, in most cases. So it's not going to take 2 weeks to undo, what's already been done to your body, to your nervous system, to your gut health and mental health and connection. So it's going to take time. But the first step is you have to go to the doctor. You have to rule out things. If you do not do it, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, because I've said it in numerous videos before, you will, if you don't do it, you will never, ever convince your subconscious that there's nothing wrong. Like I'm telling you right now, you can watch these videos on loop for years, and you're still going to be stuck in that thing because you've never gotten any like legitimate, real reassurance other than people. You know, it's other people's stories. You're your own story, which is something that you have to learn also with health anxiety. It's you're your own story. It's very easy to get caught up in the fact of what somebody else is going through, because you're going to be on Google in the beginning, you're going to be on YouTube in the beginning, you're going to be hearing about people having attacks. I don't want to say any words, I don't want to trigger anybody, but you're going to be hearing about people who have had heart attacks. I apologize for anybody, but again, this is the point of this, is that you're your own story. You're not anybody else's story. What other people have had or have dealt with is not necessarily what you're dealing with or what you're going to deal with. So, you're going to, when you start to do the research and the Googling and the YouTubing, you're going to come across those triggering terms like the heart attacks and strokes and heart failure and like all those kind of things, because, I've been through that. So I know full well what that's going to do to you. But that can be just a phase. You can, when you develop the mentality that you have your own story and you're not somebody else, and what somebody else went through is not what you're going through, that's something that has to be drilled home, and will help you in terms of the acceptance. So when you go to the doctors and they rule things out for you, and now you're telling yourself that, what other people have been through and these horror stories that everybody else has had, that's not you. Okay, that's never been you. You just have a fear now, like this deep-rooted fear that's trying to convince you that it is, and you have to avoid all of these situations because it's just a danger. And it gets to the point, obviously, where if you believe in that and you put your energy into that, now it's hard for you to leave. Now it's hard for you to get out of bed. Now it's hard for you to exercise. Now you become agoraphobic. That's where the spiral will take you. So don't do that. Like, you have me, you have these other people who are telling you these stories about what they've been through, so you can relate to that and you can just follow in the footsteps. You don't have to be overwhelmed in the sense that you have to do everything on your own. Like, a lot of the steps are laid out in some of these videos. You just have to be careful about who you watch, because some people will give you good information and some people will just kind of give you information that can be helpful, but I don't think it's going to be is the be all end all to what's going on in somebody's life. So just be wary of that. Not to toot my own horn at all, but that's why I feel like I give some of the most real information and advice of anybody that's on here. And I do have people on YouTube that I trust and that I know, that I've spoken to numerous times when I was going through it, because I did set up virtual calls and consultations and things like that with them, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So use it as a resource, like use it as a tool to get you started at the very least and get you going in the right direction. And then if you think that you want to branch off and do certain different things, or if you think you're ready to do certain things, then by all means go ahead and do it. But the first pieces of this, go get checked out, rule everything out, develop the mindset that the things that you've seen that have developed this fear in you is not your story. Like they haven't written your story, in somebody else. So like you have to do this again. For the most part, most people are going to go into a doctor, they're going to go do their tests, they're going to be afraid, they're going to be scared, they're not going to want to go to the doctors, get the results. But for the most part, you are going to be relieved when you go back in there and hear that there's nothing that I can see, it's just anxiety. Get a second opinion if you need to, then start moving forward. Go do there's things that are very good and very beneficial for mental health. Exercising is one of them. And when you have health anxiety, it's just incredibly difficult to do it. And most people will not, because they're afraid that something's going to happen to them. I was in that boat. Other channels, I'll name drop Trey Jones because he says it in his videos. He was in that boat. So anybody that deals with health anxiety was going to be in there. There was another one that I don't know if they even do videos anymore, but they used to doodle and draw the the videos. I think it was improvement path. I think same thing. I know that they were dealing with health anxiety, and I think they said that they became agoraphobic, or they didn't leave their house for a while in one of the videos. But eventually they started going to the gym and doing all that kind of stuff too. Trey Jones too is very big on exercise. It's very good for the mind and the body. If you have concerns about the heart and you have cardiophobia and you've been to a cardiologist and you've had the testing, done the stress tests and things, like, you could obviously exercise. You're afraid to do it, and your heart rate, is going to jump up, and your heart rate might be, a little bit naturally high because of the adrenaline and, the chemicals and the bodily responses that are going on. In most cases, based off of your thoughts and based off of your negativity and what if thoughts. I also had the Dare app. The Dare app says this too in a lot of things. I think that is Barry McDonough, I think is the guy's name. I don't know if it's Dunna or something, but I'm pretty sure it's Barry McDonough. He was on a video talking to, I think it was Sanjay Gupta, and I mean, you can see like, even after 2 years, like, I watched these videos so many times that I remember like all of it almost. But he was saying the same thing. Is like, your heart, number one, it's not an atomic clock. It doesn't always keep the same beats per minute or anything like that. You don't have to keep checking it. You've been given a green light that you're okay to do whatever you need to do, and you've gotten a testing to back that up. And then, like, on top of that, he was also saying that your mind, it's in a lot of senses, it's an illogical and irrational fear, because your mind can't, like, you can't just tell your heart to stop beating. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the way that it works. So you can scare the shit out of yourself, and you could speed it up a little bit, which is in a lot of cases why your resting heart rate is going to be, a couple of beats per minute higher, because you're always in fear. You always kind of have these chemicals and these stress hormones and things like pumping through your body. So it's just going to naturally keep your heart rate a little bit higher than it probably normally would. But it doesn't do anything for you, because it's not, in reality, it's not protecting you from anything, because your mind can't stop, your heart from beating anyway. It can only speed it up. And then, like, obviously, if you do meditation and you're good with that kind of stuff and you're a calm person, you can slow it down a little bit. But other than that, like, it's doing its own thing. But you've gotten, that it's healthy. You know what I mean? So you feeding anxiety into it doesn't actually accomplish anything. It just leads you living in fear and afraid to do anything, which then in turn, increases those vitals and does those kind of things, to you. And you can see this when you have a halter on, and a lot of people, they wear the halter for a couple of days, and I did this too, and it's not a good thing, but you check again, I don't recommend checking any of the results either, because you could check your halter results and you see, at the height of your heart rate, maybe it was in the low 100s. And then when you go to sleep, it's like 40 or 50, and you're like freaking out again, because you're like, what the hell is going on? My heart's so low. But you can see, like, when you're sleeping, like, yes, your subconscious still is running, and these programs and things are still running in the background while you're sleeping, but that's as calm as, like, you can be. And you can see that your heart rate gets low into, like, the 40s and the 50s. So you can see that your heart is capable of slowing down and not beating really fast and going to, like, the 90 to 100 to 110s when you're, like, not exercising, when you're just really anxious, right? So you can see that your heart rate does slow down. And I think Dr. Gupta said to me when I had a consultation with him, that he's like, as long as your heart rate does slow down, and it's not like 100 to 120 all day, every day, then you're fine. When you're sleeping, it's going down to 40, 50, it's resetting, so you're still good. So, with that being said, just to kind of finish up the video, that's pretty much where I want to leave it. The fact that, go to the doctors. In the beginning, you're going to be anxious and nervous, and that's fine, and that's normal. But get that done out of the way, so you can start the accepting and start the convincing that, these stories and these horror stories that you have seen and these triggering terms that you have seen, they're not you. They didn't go through what you're going through. They might have had something underlying going on. Whereas you do not. But you have to get to that point. You have to go to the doctors and see the specialist and get the necessary testing done. Because if you don't do that, there's just no way. There's no way you'll ever be able to take any steps. There's no way you'll ever be able to progress. There's no way you'll ever be able to convince yourself that you don't have anything more serious going on. So don't even try it. Don't even bother. Don't even watch the videos, because you're selling yourself short. You're doing yourself a disservice, and you're only going to prolong the unnecessary suffering. So get that done. Then start to the mentality behind it of convincing yourself that you're different. You don't have to have the same fears these other people have had. Start taking these steps that I mentioned in this video and other videos about fixing your life and all these surrounding areas, and then some of the symptoms again will go away, and then you can get back to your life. It's still a process. It's still, you still have to go through the steady progressions to get fully through it, but at least now you have some kind of control over your life back, and you can start living your life again, because it's very difficult when you're stuck in the middle of it all. So if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please feel free, let me know. I'm still very accessible when it comes to this. I'm still proud of the fact that I respond to every single comment that anybody has made to me in these videos. So, if you have questions, concerns, anything like that, please feel free. I'll do all that I can to help you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you very much. I love you all. I wish you all the best of luck in the recovery, and recovery is obviously possible. The anxiety aspect is not for life. And you can get through it. Just follow the steps. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.